Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Right Path podcast, where being an author, an actual author, still matters. Folks, this is the podcast that's for authors, it's about authors, it's by authors. This is where we come together, we share our journeys, we explore our creativity together, and we examine the why behind it all. Our guest today, honestly qualifies for every single line that I just read. And everything that I found out about this wonderful lady I'm so excited to bring her story to you this morning, and I just can't wait. So we went over her intro, and I'm going to give you the intro that I've got for this person. So strap on your seatbelt and get ready for this, all right? She is an author, all right? And we're going to get to that today, of course, but she's a 50-something author. She's an internet reseller, which is a fantastic story already. She's a frequent auction offender, which I'm pretty sure we're going to hear about. She's an entrepreneur and a guest speaker. She's a guest speaker who has a contract with a TV producer, which if I don't ask her about that, folks, please write me, please DM me, because I think I'm going to miss that one. I want to make sure I get it. She specializes in mad chaos and mad organizational skills, and she has the sleep schedule of a bullfrog, which again, I cannot wait to hear all about. I'm afraid it's going to match mine way too much. She's the author of a couple of books to start with, and they are The Fabric Wars and The Fabric Wars and More. And she has a new book out, which is a children's book, and it's goodness gracious. I can't read the name I wrote down, but it's Arlo and the Camp Bus. I finally
Yes.
cracked my own code of my bad handwriting. All right, folks, please welcome to the show the amazing Kira Hartley Klinger. Kira, how you doing this morning?
I am great, Rory. Thank you for, the perfect intro. There's a lot to talk about there.
I mean, out of all of them, and I know you get this all the time, but let's just get the bullfrog out of the way. It sounds like you just don't sleep a lot, like me. Is that right?
I generally don't, and it's not by choice, believe it or not. As a kid, I loved to sleep like any other kid. That was the number one thing I did when I got home from school and high school. I took a nap. Um, I developed migraines probably about 8, 9 years ago,
Hmm.
and they're chronic. I have them every night. I can't go to bed without an ice pack on my head. I mean, they're just always there. I will wake up in the middle of the night to change the ice pack. So it's not by choice, but I've learned to really utilize it. I get a lot done in all this awake time in the dark, but you know, yeah. So I don't
Yeah.
sleep a whole lot, but I sleep enough.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm no stranger to living in pain, but so I know it's just not fun. I didn't realize that, but that's rough. That really is. Well, you shouldn't be putting that out there. So people like me, bring it up like it's a joke. I
No,
feel
it's
terrible now.
good. No, you should not feel bad. You should not feel bad. I have, the sun will bring on a headache in a heartbeat. And I have the most incredible collection of floppy, flowery, crazy sun hats. And people they kind of look at me and then they're like, wow, it's really a great hat. I'm like, yeah, I know. But they work. I need when the sun's coming up, coming down, when I'm on the airplane and people have their shades up and that sun is just nailing me. I put on this hat and you can't even see me. I'm just there. But it has to be bold and loud because why not? You
Why
know,
not? Exactly.
why
I
not?
I love that attitude already. From the moment we were going back and forth, that's the attitude that I was picking up just in your writing, in the comments. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all to hear the hat story. I
Yeah.
got you. Okay. All right. Well, let's kind of get back in here. The internet reseller part and that sort of that's kind of what set you up and got you going and launched this whole thing, isn't it?
It really is. And, we had a conversation before we started, you and I, about where we live. And so
Mm.
you should be very familiar. I don't know if you attend, but you should at least be aware that in this rural areas that we live, auctions are a big thing. And estate auctions and farm auctions and multi-generational sales. I mean, there's nothing like the Midwest when it comes to people who hoarded things for generations. I mean,
Right.
but we hoarded good stuff. I've had friends that have lived in Myrtle Beach and in Florida, and I have a friend in Texas, and my producer friend is in California. They don't have a clue. I did a podcast with a woman in Montana. She says, I don't have a clue what you're even talking about. I've never been to such a thing. And it's like, people, you are missing out. You know, they are so much fun, not just for my business, but for my life. Our entire farmhouse has been remodeled and in the process of remodeled from things I have found at auctions, whether it be architectural elements or furniture. And it's a fabulous resource. And I
It's
want to
amazing.
go right now just talking about it.
You're
So
excited.
yeah, I am. I would like to go to one right
I understand. You are not wrong. And I think there's more storage sheds, I think, in Indiana and Ohio than there are in probably any other two states in the entire, United
now.
States.
Probably. Yeah.
So every weekend something's going on out of somebody's storage shed or somebody's barn or someone's garage, and we're auctioning
Yeah.
everything everywhere. So yeah, I know
Yes.
exactly what you're talking about. But I mean, you took that though. I mean, it's one thing to go to an auction and find, a great deal, oh wow, this
Mm-hmm.
is cool. You can't find this anywhere else. You can find great finds. You can get great deals on things that you need anyway. But I mean, you have turned this into like a thriving business that
Yeah.
led you into all this other stuff. How did that start?
Out of necessity, out of panic. I was a single mom at 40. I had the last of my three children, was still in high school.
Hmm.
And yeah, I needed to make money. And, I had kind of a lame day job. I worked on the playground at the school, but I was always trying to find jobs where I could keep an eye on my kids. I was a rotten teenager. I'll just say rotten. I'll put it out
Get
there.
out of town.
Both my parents worked. I got into mischief. I mean, I did stuff. And so I was determined that when I was raising my kids, that they weren't going to get away with anything. And the only way that I could do that um, was to find jobs that I could work around their schedule. So I took the playground job when my daughter was in elementary school. And of course, she was mortified. She's like, oh my God, that's my mom. I mean, wanted
Right.
nothing to do with it. But, it worked. But I needed something to supplement that. And I really was resisting. It's like I had come so far. I had two boys that one was done with college, one was in college, and my daughter was a freshman. I'm like, I am almost to the finish line. I am not going to get a 9 to 5 job just yet. So I started, I'm like, what can I do? And eBay was brand new at the time. It was maybe 5 years old.
Hmm.
My sister was the one that threw it out there. She's like, I really think you'd be good at buying and selling. I'm like, what? I mean, I'm the last person. If you want to buy a certain car at a car dealership and you need a negotiator, don't ask me. Because as soon as they tell me, yeah, it probably won't be here if you change your mind, I'm like, okay, I'll buy it. I mean, so I was not that person. But anyway, I decided to try it. And the first auction that I went to, I was on a budget. Back then, you didn't have smartphones. You couldn't just look something up on the fly and see what it was worth.
Right.
Now, when I go to an auction, it is flooded with all these people with smartphones, all these young kids who think that they're going to make a quick buck, and they're just walking around taking pictures of things and looking things up. And they're just so incredibly obvious. They're giving it away before the sale even starts. But back when I started, you couldn't do that. So you were up against all the wheelers and the dealers and a lot of the old men that were doing flea markets on the side. It's just people who knew what they were doing. And I didn't have a lot of money to spend. I'm not a big gambler. So anything that's sold cheap, I would buy it and see what happened. I got lucky on several things, enough that really kind of lit my fire and said, you know what, I might actually turn out to be pretty good at this. And so, yeah, it just kind of took off. Fabric was one of those things that turned up in a backyard one time, really cheap. And I didn't know anything about it at all. And the auctioneers didn't really care about fabric at all. It was, the stuff that's in the backyard is the throwaways. It's the stuff that the auctioneer's helper gets to, at the very end of the sale. You wait all day to get to it. So
Right.
anyway, that's where the fabric started. And I learned, like anybody else learns these days. I learned on the internet. I watched, I did research. I picked the brains of people that I knew that knew something about fabric, and it just evolved.
See, that's something that was fascinating to me when I was reading this because, again, I'm from Indiana. I've been to my share of auctions. I've been to, the storage sales, and all these types of
Mm-hmm.
things. Sometimes my wife and I just to grab a
Yes.
coffee and get out of the house, right? Because that's what you do in Indiana. You find something to do. But I had never, ever heard of fabric as part of this. In all of I asked my wife and she was like, fabric?
Yeah.
You know, that's such a
Yeah.
unique, and I hate the word, but it's such a unique niche. I mean, was it just you saw it sitting there and you said, "Hey, this is garbage to somebody else, but I have an idea," or did you have a background with this, or how did the fabric thing pop out of nowhere for you?
I really didn't. It popped up because nobody initially wanted it. It was selling for a couple bucks a box. I do work with fabric. I can do upholstery. I'm pretty good at doing upholstery. I can do quilts, but I quilt by hand. Sewing machines befuddle me, which is crazy because in this house I'm the carpenter, so I can run table saws and I can run miter saws and air nailers all day long. I'll put the trim up in an entire house, no problem. But if you sit me in front of a sewing machine, I will get that thread tangled into a big ball in about 2 seconds flat. So I don't use a sewing machine. And it's kind of comical because I've started to do this guest speaking with quilting guilds in the last couple of years with my fabric and with my books. Um, and they do a show and tell at the end of their meeting. And these ladies' quilts are just, I mean, they asked me to bring mine for show and tell, and I don't even want to hold it up. And I'm proud that I can do it. I think I make a nice product, but compared to these ladies, they're like the Smithsonian. So anyway, but they love hearing me talk about my confusion over a sewing machine because they have these $10,000 long arm sewing machines, and they just laugh, like I'm silly, and it's just like, well, sorry. So, um, fabric is something, like I said, auctioneers don't really care about fabric. Auctioneers like what goes on the table at the front of the sale, at the beginning of the sale. And I call it the big bucks arena. It's all the guys that are there to spend their money.
Ah,
And in the books, everybody has a title. And so they are the big bucks. And I don't usually go up against the big bucks very often. A lot of them are collectors. A lot of them specialize in one thing or another. And it's just not an arena where I like to compete. Even though I'm no longer broke, I'm actually debt free for the first time in my entire
oh,
life. I
congratulations.
Thank you. I still don't want to spend more than a few dollars if I don't have to. Now, if I know that it's worth a lot of money, my investment might get bigger, but I'm not the person that wants to spend $100 to make $200. I'm the person that wants to spend $5 and make 100. It's still my
Yeah.
mentality. I can't get away from it. So finding a good estate fabric auction is hard. Auctioneers typically don't advertise it well. I have gone to estate sales where I suspected that there was going to be fabric, even though it was never mentioned, and I was rewarded with mountains of it. There was one particular sale. It was a country estate out here in Ohio, and the woman was 90 some years old. They were selling quilts that she had made, and hello, she was the president of a quilt guild for like the last 20 years. So one
Ah,
thing I learned about going to quilt guilds is that they have more fabric than they know what to do with. And so I'm like, there's fabric there. I know there's fabric there. Even though the auctioneer did not say fabric anywhere in his listing, there is fabric at that auction. So I went, and there were two like box cars in her backyard. And one of them had like 20 gigantic plastic totes full of fabric. Plus the entire house was full of fabric, you know.
wow.
And since it wasn't advertised, and since nobody else wanted to go digging in that dirty, dusty, mouse infested trailer, when they came by the trailer and said choice out, and I had the high bid of $5, I got each and every one of those totes for $5 a piece. And there was some fabric in there that was, from the Depression. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, you know. So, and there was a woman that came up to me afterwards, and she's like, she saw all these totes that were stacked up outside the trailer. It's pouring rain that day. I mean, really raining. I am soaked. I am muddy. I've got all these totes stacked up in these puddles. She comes over with her little umbrella. She's like, is that all fabric? I was like, yes, it is. You know?
And it's
So
not for you.
and she's like, wow, do you sew? And I'm like, a little. You know, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of fun to try to find the fabric. It's almost like Where's Waldo?
Nice. Nice. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
And
understanding this a lot better now, hearing you talk about it.
you know, and now that I have made all these connections with these quilting guilds, I got a phone call from a woman, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, so ago. And she said, you know, I'm getting to the point where it's time to get rid of my stash. And she said, are you interested? And I'm here to tell you that I am sitting on more fabric than I will probably ever be able to list in a lifetime. But because it's so hard to find, um, I can't say no. So it's like, well, certainly, you know. And I show up and she's got an entire basement. You can't even walk through it. She puts my fabric collection to shame.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so, yes, I have bought one stuffed SUV full so far, and I plan on going back as soon as I
Nice.
figure out where I'm going to put it.
I was just going to ask you that. So, are you building a
Yeah.
barn for this or something, or a storage shed just for your stuff? I mean, where are you keeping it all?
We have in the back property, we have a garage, and one side of it is an addition that was built in the 1980s, not by us. We've only lived here about 13 years. But the other side of it, at one point, somebody took an old servant's quarters and attached it to this newer garage. So my husband has the newer side. I took the servants' quarters side. It's quite a large space. It's probably 24 by 24. And because of my mad carpentry skills, I have built 2 by 4 by 8 shelving all the way around this 24 by 24
Holy
garage,
cow.
all the way to the ceiling. There's 9 foot ceilings, you know. Um, yeah, so I've been working on that probably for the last year, but I'm so embarrassed. All the shelves are full and I still have things stacked on the ground. So I mean, this that you see behind me, this I'm getting my office organized because my inside office is supposed to be the pretty place where I cut my fabric and all that other stuff. So I have a goal. My husband says you always have a goal.
Wow.
He's not believing me just yet, but
I
I'm
don't know if
always
I blame
determined
him.
to prove him wrong. Yeah, no, I'm gonna get organized.
Got
I
to give the guy
swear
a
I'm
little
gonna get
grace. I don't know
organized.
if I can blame him. I mean, with the rate you're going, he's going to
I
need to buy a
know.
whole other property or put a whole pole barn up
Oh,
or something in the back property, so to speak.
we have
So,
other barns. We do. But one of the barns has all of the architectural stuff that I've salvaged from auctions. I actually got him involved. There was a railroad hotel, Victorian Railroad Hotel, that had all this incredible trim. And it had Christian doors that matched the doors in our house because our house was kind of a mishmash of very old and like 1950s, really crappy redo job.
well,
So I needed more doors. I needed, the Christian doors are the ones that look like a cross down the center. It's 4
mhm.
panels crossed in the middle. And the hinges, the old cast iron hinges at the hotel matched what we had in the house. And the trim was similar enough that I knew I could mix it all together and it would be amazing. So I came home one day and I'm like, honey, I just bought the salvage rights to a Victorian hotel for $400. I'm like, and we gotta go take all the woodwork out of it and all the doors out of it on Saturday. So and he's such a good sport. He was like, oh, okay. I
Oh
had a
my
stress
goodness.
fracture at the time, so I had a walking boot. And so we're up and downstairs probably 5,000 times as we're pulling off doors and molding. So yeah, that's my other barn. So anyway, okay.
Okay.
Back
All
to
right.
fabric.
My goodness. All right. Well, that
I
answers the
know.
fabric question. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the story. So you go on Etsy and
Yes.
you're putting this out on Etsy. And now, do you start selling the fabric, or are you selling products you make with the fabric? How'd you get started there on Etsy?
Oh gosh, I don't have time to make anything.
I,
It's
at this point, I mean, you don't sleep.
no,
You're
I
kind of
mean,
crazy. You're buying fabric everywhere. I'm like, hey, I don't know what
indeed.
to expect.
Yeah, I mean, crafts take a really long time, and I have a lot of respect for the people that craft and make quilts and things like that.
Yeah.
It takes a tremendous amount of time, and the money that they get back for the product that they made it's shameful, So my hats are off. And these quilting guilds, they exist. They make quilts for charities, and they are constantly like pumping out as many quilts as they can for whatever charity is that they're working on. It's incredible. So no, I do not sell things that I make. I sell the product to make. I sell to the crafters. So yes, I sell the fabric. I also salvage old things. I will take an old quilt that somebody pulled out of a trunk that is tattered and too threadbare to be put on a bed, and I will cut that into pieces, and I have people that will buy those pieces and make something new. Okay, so I am not opposed to salvaging anything. I salvaged one time carpet out of an old farmhouse, and this is carpet that was made in the 1800s. It originated in Scotland before it came here. It's called Scotch, and it is a woven, very coarse wool fabric, if you will, but they used it for carpet, and it's reversible. And so it was not very wide, so they would seam it together based on the size of the room. And they weren't really looking to make, the floors beautiful. Like when the Oriental rugs came out, they were looking to make the floors warm. Ohio's cold, lots of places are cold. So it was a functional thing. And if you're familiar at all with the old reversible coverlets from the 1800s, where they would often be red and blue or green, sometimes they would be all those combinations involved. And they would always be signed down at the bottom with the year. It very much resembles that idea. It would only use 2 or 3 core colors in the pattern. So I amassed a huge box that came out of that house. So that was a really fun thing to sell. And I sold, I think, $700 worth of it to some guy overseas. He was fascinated that somebody had actually found examples of this old carpet. Now, mind you, I paid $30 for this box of carpet. So that was a good sale. But yeah, I will sell anything and everything that can go into somebody's finished product on Etsy.
Nice.
And then I tell the story about where it came from,
Exactly. Yeah, and I've seen the Etsy page. I mean, I've had a chance to look at that. So I get what you're doing there. I didn't know how you started with it. I know what it looks like today, but it sounds like you're consistent today with what you've been doing on there.
Yeah, fabric started for me on eBay because I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And so it was a fishing expedition. Okay. What is this worth? And back then, people like to bid on things on eBay. So it was fun. People don't like to bid anymore. This is like an instant gratification culture, Right. So the bidding thing has really gone away. But once I got good at it, and once I started to get customers that were coming back and placing bigger orders, it took time to build an inventory. You want to have like a respectable inventory. You can't just have 10 pieces of fabric and expect to have an audience, Right. But then China started to come into the market on eBay. There used to be a trade agreement a long time ago, before the internet was a thing, with China, the government of China, where they paid X amount of dollars a year, and their country could ship to America for free, anything that was under a pound. There's a lot of things that fall under a pound now that the internet is a thing. So when you go on and you would find buttons, or you would find fabric, or you would find all of these miscellaneous things that were selling cheap, $2 with free shipping. And you're like, how? And well, that's how. But things that were coming from China weren't the same as the things that I was making. It's a poorly reproduced product that once upon a time was substantial, was beautiful, was, so yeah, I felt the need to leave eBay at some point with the fabric. And that's when I decided to take it to Etsy. And I found an entire community there and people that were on the same page, and it just grew. Right. I knew he was going to do this.
It's okay.
Lay down.
It's, what, we don't edit. That's life happens. All my shows are the same way.
Give me 1 second. I got to let him out. There. Go. He's old. I have 2 Newfoundlands, the 300 pounds between the 2 of them.
Yeah, and those are not small pups.
No, he decides to bark for whatever reason at any given time. So
don't worry.
Shut the door on him. Hold on, Max, stay back. Yeah, this is my life.
I understand. We are getting a behind the scenes look at the real Kira right now, which I just love. This is fantastic. So you start doing everything on eBay, it moves over to Etsy, but the writing, which leads us to the books, okay?
Mhm.
The writing begins on Etsy.
It begins on Etsy.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell me about that briefly, just so I have an idea how that kind of started in there. Is it a blog page or comments, or how'd you get it rolling?
You know, ironically, writing was all I ever wanted to do my entire life since I was a child.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was my dream. Everything else kind of happened by accident, out of necessity. I did a lot of writing in my 20s and 30s. I wrote four tremendously long novels that never went anywhere. I had an agent that didn't do anything. I had a few good reads along the way. I didn't finally publish something until I was in my 30s. The first thing I published was a magazine article. Um, and so then that's when the divorce happened. And, writing was a luxury that I couldn't have anymore. Writing was something that I did then and I do now in the wee hours of the morning. I'd get up before the kids and I would write. Same thing now. It's how I start my day. But yeah, so I had to give it up. And I really didn't think I was going to come back to it. Um, and I certainly didn't think I was going to write nonfiction. But there's this thing about being a writer. I think it's something that you're just born with. You have the need to tell stories. You have the need to write in some way. And so it just started to come out on my listings. I would go to these auctions and something incredible would happen, or the estate was fascinating, or you know anything. And a lot of it was funny, but sometimes it was about the people that I met and making a connection. So I just started to write these little essays on my listing pages, and maybe 3-4 paragraphs. This is where this amazing piece of fabric came from. Wait till you hear this story. And so all of my rooms, my friend called, and it has stuck. I have a friend that was an Etsy customer, and we've been pen pals for the last 3 years. She's in Texas, but she always called my categories in my shop my rooms, and all of the rooms are named after estates where the item came from. Okay, so
Hmm.
you have classy cluttered condo, or you have a bungee and a shoestring. I mean, there's always, because there's a little clever tale behind everything. Anyway, I just started developing a following. People would come back to read the stories, and then they would buy some fabric. And there were people that were creating projects and quilts using pieces from my collections and then writing a journal to go with this item that they were creating about where all the pieces and parts had come from. It was fascinating. And I never really thought that there would be a connection. I never really thought that people would care where this piece of fabric came from, that it had history. Most people just look at it, it's a tool,
Mhm.
but they were looking at it as a piece of history. And yeah, so I started to get requests, a lot of them. Somebody would say, hey, I just spent 2 hours on your shop pages just reading. I'm like, you really need to write a book. And it kept getting thrown at me over and over and over. And my life is so busy with the shops and the house, and just, I'm like, when am I going to find the time? And then it's like, okay, well, I have to find the time where I found the time when I was raising 3 kids, first thing in the morning. So I did. It took me a year. I put out my first book. um, I really I didn't want to go the traditional publishing route again. Back when I was writing in my 20s and 30s, it was considered kind of shameful to self-publish. They called them
Hmm.
vanity houses,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't. You just didn't do that. Um, Back then, you also typically paid for this service, which made it even more of a vanity thing. I know that the same thing still exists now. I know that there's still a lot of self-publishing houses that will gladly publish anybody's work for the right amount of money.
Right.
I still live in $2 land. And plus I just wasn't going to go that route. If somebody's going to publish my work, honestly, I want them to believe in my work. And I learned an important lesson too. I always thought that if you had a traditional publisher, that they were just going to do everything for you. They were going to edit it. They were going to promote it. They were going to market it. All I could do, I could just write. All I want to do is write. I don't want to do any of that.
Right.
It's not true. They do some of it, and they do get you, some greater exposure. But I have a friend that is doing really well in the young adult market, And she is on Instagram every single day, pushing, 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 pushing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a reality, you know? And I also didn't feel like I had another decade or 2 decades to spend trying to reach a publisher. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to figure it out and I'm going to do it myself. And so I did. I racked my brain for days on end and figured out how to format, and I put it out there.
I
And then I did
decided to
another one.
figure it out and do it myself. Do you have that crocheted on a pillow someplace? Because it
Oh,
sounds like your mantra.
you know, it really is. All the things that I do in life, I have figured out how to do myself because I didn't have the money to pay somebody, you know? Um, and now that my husband and I, you know, we've ruined our backs between the two of us working on this house, and we're fully capable of finishing it, but we're so tired. It's like, okay, it'd just be really nice to have it done before we retire. So now we're actually been talking to contractors to help us get to the finish line.
Yeah.
But I'm such a control freak. They come in here, I'm like, okay, this is what I want you to do. However, I'm going to do the painting and I'm going to do all of the trim work because, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Because I
So,
don't trust you to do it right. Just be honest.
right,
Yeah.
right. And it's like, you guys can do the drywall because, quite frankly, I am sick of doing drywall, but I'm going to check your seams. And then they come back with a price and you're like, what? I can't afford that. You know, it's cheaper just to do it myself. And then
There
here
you
we
go.
are.
There you go.
We're right
All
back
right.
to square one.
I could see this whole self-fulfilling prophecy coming right back. I'm like, all right, nothing's good enough. We can't pay anybody else for it. I'm doing it myself.
Oh,
Oh
especially
my
at that
goodness.
cost. My goodness.
All right. So you ended up self-publishing
Yes,
is what I'm getting on the books.
yes.
Fabric Wars comes out. Okay. Now give everybody just a brief idea. I don't want to give away the secret sauce to the book. If they want to know what's in it, they can buy it, but
Yeah, right.
right. But a little idea of what is in, Fabric Wars 1.
Okay. So both of the books, every chapter is a sale. And um, yes, you're going to find out about the sale. Yes, you're going to find out about fabric that I found here and there. You're also going to find out about auctions that I went to where there was supposed to be fabric and there was none. However, I found this instead because I always find something, you know. So even though it's Fabric Wars, you're going to find out about all kinds of things that I have bought and sold over the last 20 some years. Um, you're also going to find people that I've met. You're going to find a little bit of relatable wisdom of everyday life. Just I get squirreled, and something will happen in my life. I mean, there's a chapter called Right Hook that starts out talking about me going to the dentist. So there's just, yeah, it just gets interwoven. My mind doesn't quit, and my day to day ends up getting worked into the tale and what happened, and you kind of get this complete package of my life, of me, of the buying and selling world. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so that comes out. You
Yep.
self-publish, that comes out. Of course, you're going out, you're promoting it on your own. You're doing all the work like you always do in every aspect of your life. You're doing it all yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then how is Fabric Wars and More, the second book, different from the first, or is it a continuation with more stories to keep
It's
going?
a continuation.
Okay.
It's a continuation. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's just, and actually, you know, they all have a little subtitle underneath them that talks about, you know, like the insanity of online resale continues with Etsy's oddity. I think that was the second subtitle. And the third one, which is probably going to complete the series, is Fabric Wars Galore. And the subtitle on that, I really, really, really want to use this, but I really, really don't want to offend anybody either. The subtitle is The Dead or the Better. Because
Wow.
there are so many stories about me buying from estates versus buying from the living and negotiating with somebody who currently has a connection to what they're trying to sell, you know, and they know what they paid for it. You know, they know what they think they know what it's worth, and you know, has sentimental value or has this value. And I would rather buy from the dead all day long than buy from the living. It is a completely different world. So I really want to use that subtitle, but I don't know. We'll see.
Wow. Okay. All right. I would rather buy from the dead.
I'm just putting it
I
out there.
love that. Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
I'm a hearse chaser. Lawyers get an ambulance chaser. Sorry.
You don't need to be sorry. Hey, you just don't strike me as the kind of person who worries a whole lot about who you're offending.
And honestly, I do. I hate hurting people's feelings. So even when somebody annoys me, competition in the book, I'm always trying to be kind and trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But sometimes it's really hard. There's some competition that I go up against that I just really want to annihilate them. So I,
All
I'm
right.
I'm competitive. I'm competitive with empathy. How's that?
Gotcha.
Empathetic competitor. How
Okay,
about that?
that's going to end up on a pillow.
Yeah.
So, something like that. All right. So the books themselves, then,
Yes.
I know that, when I wrote mine and when I talk to other people about the books that they've wrote, usually there is someone, a faceless type person that you wrote the book to, or you wrote the book for. Is this written for people who like to do what you do, go resell? Is it more educational to like, hey, this is how you become a successful reseller by doing this? Or is it to folks who are kind of a fan of, like watch Storage Wars on TV and stuff like that and want to hear the stories? Or all the above? Who did you write the books to?
I would have to go probably mostly with option three. I think that I love American Pickers. Um, I've watched Storage Wars. Storage Wars scares the heck out of me because the thought of buying an entire locker, although I've bought attics, but the thought of buying an entire locker and figuring out where I'm going to put it. Um,
Yeah.
but no, so yeah, I kind of want to appeal to the people that like to watch that kind of show, and maybe they don't really even necessarily like fabric or know anything about fabric. I've had people read the books that could care less about fabric, but they walked away with a really positive opinion of it. It's a life story. There's a lot of life lessons that I've learned along the way. There's just people that like to be in that competitive arena, people that like the idea of finding great deals or, what it's like. So many people over the years have asked me about buying and selling and wanting to know, okay, how do I get started? And it's like, where do I begin? It's a long process, and I've been building from day one, and even things that I knew 20 years ago aren't the same today. So it's an ongoing constant thing. It's not something you can just spell out in a few words. So I think the books kind of appeal to people that are curious about what I do.
Nice.
There's this misconception that I have this gravy life because, oh, you get to work for yourself, you get to work from home, you get to dictate your schedule, and I'm like, what? Because I would love to clock out at 5 o'clock every single day and go home and
Right.
not look at my stuff that I have to deal with the next day, not think about, not answer emails. Yeah, I do love what I do. I would never trade it, but it's not exactly what people think it is either.
For
It's a
sure.
very full life.
For sure. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's funny that that's the answer to that question in terms of people who kind of like those shows, they're fans of that. They want to learn how to
Yeah.
do what you do. Because you did mention, and I told all my listeners to bust me out if I didn't come back to this, that you do guest speaking and
Mm-hmm.
that somewhere in here you have a contract with a TV producer. Is this all becoming a show?
I don't know. Honestly, at
Oh,
this
here we go.
point,
Here we go. All right.
I know. Honestly, at this point, I would say probably not, but I'm still under contract. So this goes back to finding anything and everything that's free, including marketing, right? So I
Right.
figured I already had my audience. They already told me to write this book. So the logical thing to do is to type out a note that says, hey, guess what? You know, I wrote the book. Here's the book. You should go buy it. It was written better than that, but you get the idea.
Hmm.
So I would mass print these notes out, four to a sheet, get out my paper cutter, cut these apart, and I've got this stack of notes. Now, mind you, I have passed out thousands of these at this point. But at the 6 week mark after my first book, unbeknownst to me, I sent one to a TV producer in California who had bought a $3 piece of scrap fabric. Okay. And I get a message back on Etsy and she says, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm a TV producer. How do you feel about reality TV? And, when you self-publish, I don't know how they get your number, but all of a sudden, all these people come out of the woodwork and they're trying to tell you that they want to take you to the next great conference in Mexico, or, they have all these things that they want to take you to promote your book. And so the first thing was like, okay, who are you? Because
Right.
really, I don't believe that this is true right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked, I can look and see if this person has placed an order. It says up in the corner, previous customer. I'm like, wait a minute. So I looked it up. I'm like, she was a customer. She got one of my notes. And so, yeah, it evolved from that. And she is somebody that's in her 60s. I don't know if you are familiar with the R.L. Stine Goosebumps series, Fear Street series, things like that.
Yes.
Okay, she is his producer.
Oh,
and
wow.
So she's done a million other things, but this has been like her main project. Mm-hmm. But she saw me as somebody like her, a woman in business, a woman who succeeds on her own, who's, she just saw a comparison, and she just saw a reality TV show out of my life. So we signed a contract. It'll be 2 years in February, and we've communicated here and there. I think part of the problem is that she's enormously busy with R.L. Stine. I mean, he has things coming out all the time. She has given me certain assignments along the way, like she wanted me to try to film myself at an auction. And it's kind of a big ask, because a chapter of my book, a story that comes from a sale, could happen from just 5 or 10 minutes of an 8-hour day. So it's hard to get in there and film an entire day and then try to pick it apart and isolate it, especially when I'm not technologically inclined. That's not my wheelhouse, So I tried. I had a friend of mine drive 4 hours up for several auctions in a row, and she tried to videotape me, and I would send her clips, and it just wasn't. Anyway, I can say that even if it never becomes a TV show, she has helped me in other ways. She pushed me to work on my brand. She pushed me to become more relevant, to put myself out there. I was always somebody that was terrified of public speaking, and terrified. And so doing the guest speaking at the Quilt Guild, I started that on my own. But doing Instagram videos and things like that, I started that because she pushed me. The podcasting, I did one podcast early on, right after the first book. A podcaster randomly found me and invited me on the show. And so I did that, but then I was doing Quilting Guild. So I didn't come back to podcasting until about 6 months ago. So her pushing me has helped me in other ways, so even if it never becomes a reality TV show, it still is good for me.
Very, very cool. I love the networking.
And it's fun to say.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's a great lady. So
it's fun to say. This is true.
It's fun to say.
I mean, hey, why not? All right. I love that. And I appreciate you kind of, closing the loop on that. I do want to ask you about your newest book, but before we do that, I really got to find out why you don't like coffee. I mean, because as I'm drinking mine, every time I lift it up I'm like, I got to find out about this. And you said you have a coffee story. So
I do.
I mean, you got to just tell us the coffee story real quick.
Okay. So, yes, I have migraines. I also have vertigo. I also get motion sickness tremendously. And that plagued me my whole life. And we used to take a lot of road trips when I was a kid. My sister and I were in the back seat. And I would get car sick every single time. So the answer to that, my parents would pass back their used coffee styrofoam cup.
Ugh.
And that I would throw up in the cup instead of throwing up on my sister, which happened on more than one occasion. And so it got to the point where the smell from that coffee cup would help produce,
Oh, my word.
And right. So coffee, I have never tasted a sip of coffee in my life. It is so bad. I was on an airplane not that long ago, and the guy in front of me ordered coffee, and it smelled like the bottom of the coffee pot coffee. It was strong. And I'm in the back seat dying. I'm like trying not to retch. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this flight. It is so bad. It is so strong. I actually, and this will go back to watching, my crime shows that I love to watch. I got out of my purse my cherry chapstick and I put a little dab of it under each nostril so that I was smelling cherry chapstick instead of smelling the coffee.
Wow.
Like these crime shows, they go into the morgue and they're always putting Vicks or something under their nose so they don't throw up. But it worked. It worked. I got through the flight. So no
word.
coffee from me. Thank you. I'm good.
I got to be honest with you. When you told me you had a coffee story, I mean, I went probably 60 different ways, and I'm like, how can this be bad? And then it turns out that the smell induces vomiting, and I'm like, well, now what? Where do we go with
It
this?
is
Where do we go with this, Kara?
incurable.
Oh my
It is.
word.
You will never cure me of my coffee.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm so glad we
there for
covered
life.
that. All right, so moving on from the coffee story, which I
Yeah.
love. You've got Arlo the Camp Bus.
Yes.
Now you're doing, nonfiction. You are, writing almost a how-to guide on how to work with, fabrics and resale. I mean, all this total niche stuff that you
Yeah.
have all
Fun
set
word.
up and a huge following. What makes you say, I'm going to write a book about a bus?
Now, when I tell you the story, it'll make sense. And
Okay.
some of this is interwoven into my books because I talk about a lot of this in my books. I talk about life. Um, we have, I'm married again. We have 8 shared grandchildren, and they live all over. We don't see them nearly as much as we would like to. So every year for a week, we have camp on our farm where all 8 of the grandkids come.
Oh, wow.
We have a huge pond that is stocked with fish. We have an old pontoon boat in the middle of the pond that has a water slide. We're adding new things every year. We have horses and ducks and chickens that they hatched from an incubator one year when it was our camp project. We're always doing something. So it got to the point where we're like, okay, we really need something better to transport these 8 kids than 2-3 vehicles, because right now we have 3 5-year-olds, 3 7-year-olds, a 10-year-old, and a 13-year-old. They start coming to camp when they're 2. So when we had 3 2-year-olds and 3 5-year-olds, we're like, we need help. So we had junior counselors that I found at church that would come and help us. So we had quite the crew, and anytime we would want to go someplace, it was a pain, especially because we had car seats. So one year we decided to buy a bus, and it was an old city transit bus. And my husband is a mechanic, so he got it tip-top shape. He even installed an Ugo horn. I painted it, and the outside looks a whole lot like the Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo, turquoise and lime green, and it's painted inside and out. There is shag turquoise fur that hangs from the ceiling inside, flowered curtains and flowered seats. I mean, it is all redone. And we bounce around in this bus going from place to place to place. People wave and stare and honk the Ugo horn. It's a lot of fun. So my mom had been after me for quite some time to write kids' books. When we started doing camp, and especially when the bus came around, she says, okay, now you need to write children's books, but Arlo needs to be the star. The bus needs to be the star. And so the books are kind of told from Arlo's perspective. The first book of the series introduces Arlo when we found him alone and dirty and dusty on a car lot, really sad and worried and really wanting a home, And so it goes through all of the emotions that a bus goes through in trying to find a new home, and then all of the emotions that a bus goes through when the bus is getting this tremendous redo that's kind of on the funky side, and do I look strange, and what is my purpose? I'm not a church bus anymore. What am I? Then at the end of the book, Arlo realizes that, hey, I'm a camp bus, and all these kids love me, and so the message at the end of the book is, I am loved. So yeah, and the next book I've already written, it's Arlo and the Drippy Chocolate Ice Cream Cone, and the message at the end of that one is, I am special. And my artist, the girl who did the artwork for my Fabric Wars book, she's doing all the illustrations, all the paintings. So she's being a slacker right now because I did the writing and she hasn't finished 32 pages of illustrations, but it's coming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So,
Okay, first of all, I'm tearing up over here, and I have an idea to the answer to this question.
yeah,
So you wrote this book to whom?
I wrote it for my grandkids. I mean, the older that I get, um, the more I've become very much aware of what I want to leave behind. And, there's always been this great excitement and enthusiasm behind writing a book and wanting people to read it and wanting to hear what people say and think about it. And when I was writing fiction, it was all invisible. It was all made up, and maybe it was something that related to me, and I used it in a fictitious way. But when I'm writing nonfiction, free to be you and me, man. I mean, I can put it out there who I am and what I believe and what I think and how somebody affects me. And I can put it out there for my grandkids that, it's okay to have these emotions, and that at the end of the day, no matter what you feel, no matter what you are always loved. I want to leave something really positive behind. So, yeah. And I see a series with these books. I really do. I mean, I have the second one written. I know what the topic of the third one is. Everything is going to follow a message, for children. I've always been very strong into missions that support children, and I've started several of them. I'm active in missions that support children. I just think it's really, really important. So, I'm, of course, marketing right now. And I made these really adorable postcards that talk briefly about Arlo on the back, inviting myself to come do a book reading. And I have sent them to schools and libraries all over Ohio. And Indiana is going to be next. I've sent a couple to Indiana because that's where my grandkids live.
Nice.
But ideally, I'd love to show up in the bus. And this is, I mean, my husband's like, you're getting sidetracked. I'm like, yeah, I know. I am still working every day. I'm still making money every day. I'm still doing everything else every day. It's just everything's I saved room for this.
Right. Well, is it really sidetracked, or is it, just starting down the path of the next mission?
And it could be. I
Yeah.
mean, I might have built all my shelving for nothing. I might have built them for the next person that buys this house and says, "Wow, look at this garage." Um, but yeah, I would love it if this is what I was doing in my retirement. I just think
Yeah.
it'd be perfect.
All I can tell you is that every empty nester, every grandparent who is listening to this podcast right now just went running for the tissue, and that's amazing that you're doing that way. I have three kids; they're all grown. I'm an empty nester. I'm waiting patiently for one of them to give me some grandkids, and
Yeah.
I
Oh,
cannot
it's
even
great.
imagine a summer camp for all my grandkids to begin with, let alone the bus and everything that you just described. I mean, honestly, that's if that doesn't hit your
Oh.
heart, you don't have one.
Well, if you've been I think we hooked up on social media, and if you dig around through my Facebook pages, you'll find pictures of camp because it's full of it, and we've got a
Yeah.
fan following in our town, in our family. Everybody can't wait for the next camp pictures. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Wow. Just
Yeah,
wow.
it's
Just wow. Okay, so the next things on the docket for you in terms of the
mm,
book world is you do have a third Fabric War book coming. You've got a
slowly.
second and a third children's book coming for Arlo.
Yeah.
And so we're looking forward to seeing those through the self-publishing world, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Before we wrap up, and
Hmm.
I really appreciate just all of your openness and your stories and giving everybody such a great look at you, the author of these books. Um, just amazing, to be honest. How do people reach you? How do they find your books? How do they, get in touch with you or find the different projects? What's your contact info?
Okay. The best way to find me, I have a Facebook author page um, under Kira Hartley Klinger.
Hmm.
I have, of course, my Etsy page, which is under Dot Oddity, Doddity. Instagram, you can find me also under Dot Oddity. The books are all available on Amazon. However, if you go to my Etsy shop and you buy them on Etsy, I can sign them. I can give you a free matching bookmark. We also made really, really sweet wristbands that match the book. And on the outside of the wristband, it says ARLO the Camp Bus. And on the inside is a secret message for the child that says, I am loved. And you can buy those on my Etsy page. I don't have those on Amazon. So, and we've got little package deals and things like that that you can buy. We even have T-shirts with Arlo on them.
Nice.
So, yeah, but
Nice.
those are all on Etsy.
Wonderful. All right. Those links will be in the show notes. We'll get that covered for you, and
Thank you.
we'll get that out there. And we do, put links to this on all of our podcasts. So, we're going to have everything we can do to try and get the word out on these fantastic projects you're doing. Kira, as we wrap up, let me just ask you this. You've been through so much. You've learned so much, and you've done so
Mhm.
much of it yourself. What's your best piece of advice to authors out there who are not quite where you are yet in the process of getting books out, becoming an author and that kind of thing?
As I said earlier, I think people are born thinking about writing it. I mean, if you're a writer, I just think it's there all the time. And I don't think that people who don't write, I don't think that they quite get it. So if you're the person that wakes up in the morning feeling like you have something to say, or taking notes, or writing journals, or writing things down, and it's on your brain that you want to write a book, just do it. It's super, super important to find that nugget of time during the day when you know that you can be accountable. For me, it's first thing in the morning, because the rest of my life will take off like a freight train and it won't happen. But just do it. There are so many resources available nowadays to help you complete the project. You can get on the internet. I learned on the internet how to format step by step. This is how you format a Microsoft Word. Did it suck? Yeah, it sucked a lot, but I got through it and I learned. So if it's in your heart, do it.
Nice. Great advice and a fantastic way for us to wrap up. Folks, the author of Fabric Wars and more, and the brand new and soon to be series of books for Arlo the Camp Bus, Kira Hartley Klinger. Kira, thank you so much for joining us today, coming on here and sharing like you did. It was absolutely amazing. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Thank you very much. Folks, this has been another just powerfully authentic and wonderful episode of the Right Path podcast, where the truth still counts and the keyboard calls us home. This is the place where authors know that every page is a step forward. So let's lift each other up and let's dust ourselves off and let's move forward together.